Hello, once again, we're here in our special episodes in English with an amazing guest. He's a father. He's a father. He's a real estate investor. He's an educator. He's a veteran, and also he has a podcast which has a lot of tons of information. So we're gonna have a blast. We're gonna be able to ask so many questions and to see how he runs his operation and how he's able to work with his wife, which is something that I do as well. Okay, so stay tuned. We'll be back in a few seconds. En Hablemos de Real Estate con Carlos Amaya creemos que la familia es la base de la sociedad. Por eso, nuestra misión es proveer información y herramientas a la comunidad latina de cómo lograr la libertad financiera a través de bienes raíces. Brother, so it is a pleasure for me to give you an intro to someone that I admire and someone that I wanted to talk to him for a long time. So without further ado, Adam, how are you, brother?
What is going on, Carlos? Great to chat with you. I think the last time we were booked for this, I was something. I was like a medical appointment for my baby on the way or something, so it was kind of screwed us up. But
Yes,
great
as
to
a matter of
finally
fact,
jump on.
yeah, as a matter of fact, we already we have everything prepared and everything. We have to cancel. I think it was the only show that we canceled, but it was for medical reasons. So I'm so glad that you're back and you're able to say yes again.
Me as well. I'm happy that you were willing to bring me back on after being the only guy that had to cancel on you. So
I have to say it. I'm sorry. So let's start from the beginning. So can you share with us where are you located in the world, and then we're gonna get into like how you get into real estate and all those amazing things that you're doing right now.
yeah, so I'm down in Tampa, Florida, with my wife and 3 kids. We moved here about coming up on 2 years ago, and absolutely loving life. Doing all the real estate and business stuff that we got going on.
It's great. I told you before we started the show that after a conversation in March last year, I was on my
Mhm.
way to Florida. I was still telling my wife for like the last 4 years that I wanted to move to Florida, and she said no, no, no. And after that trip, she said yes, and then I was having everything ready. We sold a house in New York. And we were on our way to Florida, and like I told you, God rerouted our path and sent us here to North Carolina, which still really
Nice.
happens as well. But I'm still jealous. I mean, I love Florida. I came back from Orlando last week,
Yeah.
and I've been in Miami a couple of times, and I really like the state. And eventually, who knows? Maybe if God wants, maybe one day
Yeah.
I'll be there.
I mean, if God wants you here, you're going to end up here regardless. But also, you're welcome to come visit anytime. We're happy to have you.
Oh,
So
and that's nice because I have this recorder. So anytime when I show up to your house, I'm like, "Who is it? You said it
wait a
anytime."
minute. My wife will be wondering what the heck what happened, but she's
Yeah.
Cuban, so she'd love to have you. She'd be
Oh, she's
like,
having that.
just oh yeah, she'd be cooking like
Oh,
crazy for you guys, inviting the whole family in, so it would go well.
love it. Okay, that sounds like a plan. Um, Going back to how did you start the real estate? So
Yeah.
when we met, you're doing so many great things that we're gonna can talk about within the show. But let's go back to the beginning. So how did you start? How did you start investing in real estate and why?
So I'll say that at the beginning, I didn't even know the way I usually word it is I never knew what a savings account was until I married my wife. So like my wife, I give all credit to her on my thought process behind this, my ability to do this, everything. So we got married, and she had this magical thing called a savings account, and I was shocked by it. That I was like, why do you save money? Like this doesn't make any sense to me, because the government, she's still in the military, I was in the military, and it was like you get paid every 2 weeks. Why do you need to save money? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
So then I just started doing some more research, and she was like, no, like the savings thing. And then she said, hey, my parents own a rental property. I wonder if we should look at doing, real estate. And I kind of laughed at her and went and lost money in the stock market instead. I said, no, 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 I'm going to do stocks. Then I realized I don't have the patience or wherewithal to do stocks. I end up buying, and then I'm watching it 17 times a day, and I lose money because I'd go and sell it when I see it losing money instead of just like picking a good company and let it last for a long time. So long story short, I did a bunch of research on different types of real estate that I wanted to do. It took me about 4 years of self education before I finally decided that we're going to buy apartment buildings. And I told my wife, I said, hey, we're going to go buy an apartment building. And she was a little surprised by this, considering she wanted me to just buy a house. And here I come along saying, no, we're going to buy an apartment building. But I got into a mastermind group with Jake and Gino, and that was a great start for me to kind of learn a little bit, be around a bunch of people who are already doing this. I was stuck in analysis paralysis,
Mhm.
thinking there was like, oh, well, I just need one more bit of education. I just need one more conference, and then I'll have the ability to be able to do this stuff. I went to a conference out in LA, and I was answering everybody's questions. I knew all of the answers to all the stuff. I just wasn't doing anything. And I was like, boy, you really need to step it up. And that's when I joined the mastermind. And within 6 months, I bought my first apartment building, which was a 62 unit apartment that I bought with a couple of guys from the mastermind. And it was all downhill from there, as I say.
And I love that you mentioned that because it's a vicious cycle. Sometimes they like
Hmm.
the two opposites are bad. Some people like they want to start in real estate and they want to start by their first property tomorrow, next week,
Yeah.
and they have no idea what they're doing, but they just want to buy the property, and and
Yeah.
and that's extremely risky. But at the same time, someone like the way you mentioned yourself, they take you. I mean, such a long time to prepare yourself, which is great, but it gets
Hmm.
to the point like you were over prepared, you were over qualified,
Yeah.
and you needed to push your star. So initially, when she said, "Okay, buy a house," you said, "No, I do the star market," and then you go. Usually, that's not how it works. People start with like wholesale, buying whole, then do some
Hmm.
fix and flip, and they got they go from like 2 to 4, the 4 to 10, and the 10 to 60, or whatever the
Yeah.
number you have, and you went straight to multifamily. So,
Yeah.
what was the reason that you decided to go to that, and how did you buy the first one? You just mentioned it through the mastermind, but how did you find it?
Yeah.
What would you roll in it?
Yeah, so I'd say that the reason I jumped into it that way is I did a lot of backtracking on where I wanted us to be financially,
Sure.
and how many doors it was going to take. I'm a very analysis oriented person, so I kind of built out what I thought that we needed to build the cash flow that I wanted. And I looked at a single family house that was. I was like, boy, it's going to take a long time. So then I started saying, okay, well, let me look at apartment buildings. And as far as I knew, apartment buildings are only the people that on those podcasts that I listen to do, and on those, in those education programs. That's what they do, not what I do, or But I started doing more and more research, and I said, okay, well, let me give it a try. Like I think that's where my economies of scale is going to come from. So yeah, I mean, when I was in the mastermind, I was answering a bunch of questions in there and going about, trying to help other people. And I got an email from somebody saying, "Hey, I love what you're doing inside the community. I'd love to, talk about, partnering up on this 62 unit I have under contract." So I reviewed the deal. I took a look at it, try to understand what was going on with it. I mistakenly did not do enough due diligence on it, because I was still kind of fresh and I had a lot of trust. It still ended up being amazing because it got me into real estate. I did not lose money on it, which is a plus. And there's a long story behind that, but yeah, we just partnered up. My role was more, I brought in some capital and I was able to do some underwriting and kind of managing the business side of it. I was living in Japan at the time, so there was no boots on the ground. I wasn't able to do any of that, or go meet contractors or anything because I'm literally the opposite time schedule. But yeah, that's what I was doing a lot, is the more of the business side of it on the backside.
Okay, so did you guys did like a JV, or did you guys
Yep,
did
it was a joint
syndicated
venture. Yeah,
joint venture? Okay, so you put some
yeah,
money in it, and
yep.
and then the other people did the other side of the job, and that this property was located where?
It was in Northeast Tennessee.
Northeast Tennessee. Okay, so you got your first property, you got your foot in the door, and then you said you might uh realize later that you didn't do enough
Yeah,
due diligence.
yeah.
So a lot of people will be stuck in there. So, okay, that's fine. I didn't lose any money, but at the same time, it was like kind of painful, painful process. So, how did you move to the second one? And were you still in Japan? And when did you come back to the States?
Yeah, so I was still in Japan when I got into my second deal, and I think that it was one of those. That first deal was one of those that, if it is your first deal, you either run so far away from real estate that you never want to do it again, or
Yeah.
you realize, if I can do this, I can do anything in real estate, no big deal. And thankfully, I had already bought my second deal before I realized how bad the first deal was going. So it made life a little bit. I'm like, I'm already in it. Like I can't run away from it. I still own another deal. It's not like I could sell this one and be done with real estate. So, I took a lot of licks on that. And actually, there's a deal right now that I'm in that, specifically because of my experience on that first deal, I was able to bring in some expertise on one of the deals I'm in right now. So, with dealing with contractors and dealing with the negatives of a lot of that stuff. So, I look at it as a blessing to say, hey, I learned a lot from this. It gave me basically like a master's degree in real estate and asset management. Um, so I think it saved my butt in making that happen. But in the long run, it we're all going to take our licks. We're all going to have problems. I ended up being lucky. We could have lost a bunch of money. I was lucky that the market kind of adjusted the way it did. Because once COVID came, and the government pushed trillions of dollars into the economy and inflated everything to ins out, it allowed us to be able to recoup some of our paper losses from that. So once we sold it, we were able to, I think I made like 1% of my money over the 4 years that we owned that thing. And, but the next deal was already in place and I was already moving. I think by that point, by the time we sold it, I think I already had two other deals, another apartment building and a mobile home park. Um, so it was difficult, it was stressful, it was rough to work on, and I do recommend that if somebody does go through something like that, just realize that you're going to have problems in real estate. It's bound to happen. It's how you respond to the problems that makes a big difference in your ability to recover from what's going on. And that's thankfully we were able to respond pretty well at the end.
Sure, and I love that you mentioned that because so many people start like buy the first property, or the only notion to be in real estate they associate it with problems.
Hmm.
And I always say the same thing: if people don't have any problems in real estate, most likely because they never invest or they haven't
Yeah,
invested for long enough. Because usually
yeah.
when you start talking with the big guys, they've been doing it for a long time. They all have we all have terror stories. I mean, we have like
Hmm.
horrible stories like we're like we say, okay, if it happens again, I mean, now I know how to handle it. But at that
Yeah.
time, it felt like it was the end of the world. Like, man, and sometimes it feel like a fraud, like the imposter syndrome, because
Hmm.
we're in the middle of it. But then you talk with the all professionals. They went through the same thing. So
Yeah.
that's part of the process. So second property, you're still in Japan, and then you're like, okay, so this one looks better than the first one. And then you're also mentioned mobile homes. So you
Yeah.
did just start doing like large multifamily complexes through the mastermind. And how did you diversify the mobile homes, and how did that went?
Yeah, so the first property was through some guys in the mastermind, and all the other ones were through other partnerships,
Okay,
mostly with like my the active duty passive income. My partners in that company, we got together and bought some other properties together too. So yeah, I the mobile home park was more. It kind of came to us. We were already looking at apartment buildings in that area. We were in Indiana at the time. So we were already looking at some properties in that area. Somebody had the mobile home park that came up. We ended up getting a partnership with a family office for they were debt and equity on that. So there wasn't any syndication. It was more of a joint venture with the family office, which worked out really well in their favor to be on both sides of that deal. But that was a great deal. It was more of a flip than anything else.
sure.
The intent was probably to hold it long term, but when we saw the numbers on where they were on the other side, it was just it made sense to sell it and be done with it. But yeah, and the other apartment building that we had in Indiana that was like 82 units or something along those lines. That was a syndication that we put together shortly before the mobile home park too.
And how do you pick the market?
So one of my business partners already was had a great property management team in the area. Well, I what seemed to be great at the time, come to find out a little bit later, not so much, but a quote unquote great property management team in the area. So he already had one property out there that wasn't too far. So we said, okay, let's take a look at this, and I underwrote the deal. It made a lot of sense. So we jumped on it and increased our footprint in that section.
Perfect. And that was 2021.
To probably no, I was 19, I believe, is when
2019.
we closed
That
on
would be
those. Yeah.
before COVID.
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
so
that was a wonderful time to start a syndication right before COVID.
right, before the news was telling people don't pay any rent, you guys don't have to pay any
Uh huh.
rent.
Uh huh.
I know that was
Yep.
fun, especially in New
It
York.
was
It was
lovely.
fun.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay,
New York was probably dreadful.
yeah, and so 2020, COVID came, and a lot of people said feel like it was going to be the end of the world, and you feel like it
Yeah.
when you go outside, you try to buy groceries. Oh, especially if you are like in one of the states like New York, New Jersey. I don't
Hmm.
know if you were already in Florida. I think you're not.
No, I
But
was not.
I know because they were open. I mean, they were pretty much open.
Yeah.
So COVID happens. The government print all the money. The inflation came. Everything costs a lot more money. Great for the property, like you said you had before, because that wave helped you. I mean,
Yeah.
that kind of erased a lot of the issues that you guys had. But how do how did the market treat you moving forward? Like after COVID, did you guys
Yeah.
still continue buying? And then how did you now? How did, because I was looking through your website and it's a family, and it says right here, family focused investing. So how did you get through that? And what is the role that your wife plays in all of this?
So we got through that by having a lot of communication with our investors. Like the
Mhm.
second we saw what was going on, I immediately sent an email out to all investors. Hey, like this is what we're seeing, this is what we're looking at, and this is all just a guess. We're not going to send out any distributions. We're going to hold cash as much as we can. We're going to continue to try to revamp some of the property to make sure that we're getting it going, but we're probably going to tone down some of what our plan was as far as like actual renovations and building everything out. So we were very open in saying, hey, we need to tone this down. Thankfully, Indiana wasn't all that bad with a lot of this stuff. It helped us out a lot and being able to just kind of turn it on. So that's how we started, and then we sent out.
Mhm.
We were like, okay, I think we're good to go. We sent out a distribution, and then literally the week after we sent out a distribution, the email comes out that said, hey, like rent moratorium, no big deal. You got like, and we were like, you gotta be kidding. So I had sent out another email to all the investors, like, hey, as you guys saw, we just had the rent moratorium, so this is going to be our last distribution for the foreseeable future. I don't really know, but it was all just about communication and managing our expectations on what was going to happen. Maintaining contact with the property manager, making sure that they're actually getting the right people in. If somebody's getting ready to leave or having a hard time, we started creating little programs that, if you're paying your rent on time, we'll give you a $200 gift card to the grocery store across the street. If you're, various different things just to kind of help keep our community happy with, what's going on. But also just kind of encourage folks to like help us make sure we pay our bills, because everything was, like you said, getting more expensive and more difficult, and we didn't know what was going to happen or where the outcome was going to lead. Um, so my wife and I were both at that time still active duty Air Force. We were in DC at the time.
Okay.
So we were kind of, I mean, I was in charge of our COVID task force for our organization, our worldwide organization. So I was constantly at work and doing all the stuff. So I was relying on team members to make sure that they were doing stuff. And I'd come home and at 10 o'clock at night and start hammering out emails to investors or do whatever. So I mean, it was just a lot of extra work that you had to put through, but it was all needed to make sure that everything was going well. And my wife, she is uh unbelievably supportive in a way that I couldn't even express. Like she loves to hear what I'm getting ready to buy or what I'm looking at or what we're working on. But she doesn't make any of the decisions on it. She's just like, hey, that sounds great. I trust what you're doing. Keep it up. And then she wants to, when she retires, which thank God is coming up next year. She wants to, when she retires, think about doing something in the business. But right now she's like, dude, I love what you're doing. I trust what you're doing. She even allowed me to jump ship from the military, getting a rather good salary, very stable benefits. And I left with an intention to get a retirement in the reserves, but that's a long story for a different day. But I left after 15 and a half years of active duty and like 18 years total, to go and focus on all this full time, go do real estate and help run ADPI. So she's just been a rock in making sure that I feel loved and supported enough to go and do what it is that I think is best for the family.
And that's amazing. That's priceless. I had a
Yeah.
a fellow GoPro, Tim Best. I don't know if you know him.
Yep. Sure
Uh,
do. He's
and
been on my podcast. Yeah.
yes, and he was in my podcast as well. And I asked him at the end of the conversation. I'm gonna ask you the same question later. What was his differentiator? And he thought it was his wife's support. And it's something that's in alignment with what's going on with me, and obviously seems with you as well.
Yeah.
Because having that trust advisor, sometimes like even the fact that they just listen and they give us their honest opinion.
Yeah.
And in my case, and I'm sure in yours and his, we know that wives are like nobody in the world that wants the best for us besides our wives. I mean
Yeah.
our moms and everybody else, but when they say something and they're willing to take the risk, because it's not only like great days. I
Yeah.
mean that those 10 p.m. just do the emails and then you get to bed super extremely tired and then get ready the next day to do it all over again. So it's
Yeah.
hard. I mean, so that's amazing. So congratulations about that. So
Yeah. Thank
so
you.
when did you move to Florida and why?
So we moved to Florida about a year and a half ago, and we moved here because my wife got an assignment down here. We've been trying. She was born and raised here in Tampa, and we have been trying to get down to Florida. And a job opportunity arose. She jumped on a phone call, talked to some folks, and they said, "Yeah, we'd love to have you." So, that set us up to move down to Tampa. Which, when we first moved down here, we didn't know it was going to be our last assignment before she retired, but now we're pretty confident that we're going to be hanging the uniform up at the end of this. So moved down here because she's assigned here, and we wanted to Florida, and we are super happy to be close to my parents as well as her family. So it's been wonderful.
That's great. How was the transition from be like an active duty to be like an entrepreneur? Like you said, it's stable benefits, stable income.
Yeah,
Even though you already have a taste of it because you were doing it at the same time that
yeah,
you were in Japan, but it's not the same, especially with the manage of the schedule, and the
yeah.
manage of like the day-to-day operation, and also working from home. I don't know how if that has been a
Mhm.
challenge to you. So I just wondering how has been the transition, the transition been?
It's been very difficult, if I'm honest. And still, I mean, it's been about 2 years since I got out, a little over 2 years, and it's been a little tough just because, like, even still, I have a hard time with my calendar once in a while where I'm like, "Boy,"
Mhm.
I'm like, "Why am I not?" Because, like, in the military, you always knew what was coming up next. You always had a job to do. You always knew what was happening. You go in, you knew, like, but that was there. It was always ready. And here I'm kind of creating my own, schedules and doing all the stuff. And when I first got out, my intention was to do full time real estate and just a little bit of ADPI, because I was teaching multifamily education in active duty passive income, and that was kind of what I was going to do, is just continue doing a little bit of teaching there, but be more focused on buying real estate. Some leadership stuff happened and some changes, and I took over as the COO of ADPI, which took up almost all of my time. Oh, I've got a dog that wants to be on the podcast with me. I think. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but
Yes, yes,
uh,
yes.
yeah, I'll kick him out. Let me see.
No, no, don't worry about it. And I hope mine they don't hear it because mine are like that. I mean, as soon as they hear any dog walking like 100 feet from my house, they start making all those noises. So, oh,
Yep, it's game on. Yeah, my son is playing out there with my au pair, so he's like super excited and laughing, and the dog's
yeah,
like, "I want to play, I want to play."
yeah.
But but yeah, so when I took over as the COO, it really took a lot of my time and mental effort. We were rebuilding kind of what we had going on. We were really excited to change our focus. We started implementing EOS in the business at the beginning of last year, and it's just been a whirlwind of stuff. So I've only done one other deal since I took over in that, and that was a assisted living facility that we've got now. Still looking at deals here and there, but I'm so focused on ADPI that it's been exhausting. So it changed my business plan a lot, which then made it even harder to do that transition because my whole plan was real estate, real estate, real estate, and then all of a sudden it turns into, oh no, you're gonna help manage the operations of the entire company of ADPI. So it's been fun.
And how do you handle the being at home working, and having a family right next door, lunch, dinners, activities. And I'm asking the question because it happens to me as well. I mean, sometimes I'm
Yeah,
here and the girl's like, "Hey, daddy, can we do something?" And I will say, "Of course, you're my priority. And I'll go." But
yeah.
then I'm there and I'm thinking, man, I was supposed to do this A, B, C, D, and
Hmm.
then sometimes I don't know if you got the guilt. It happens to me, so I feel like
All the
I feel
time.
guilty here if I'm not there. And sometimes when I'm
Yeah.
there, like, man, I should be doing this.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel that same exact pressure, and sometimes that pressure comes out in like a pressure cooker way with the kids, and I don't want it to. Right? I mean, it kind of like that boiled over pot where like there's so much going on in your brain that you have other meetings to do, and you have things going on. One thing that I've done. So there's two things. One is we got an au pair. We've got an
Yeah.
au pair from Brazil. She's awesome. She helps. I mean, she takes the kids to different events at least once a week. I have the kids go to some sort of an event because I do homeschool as well. In
Well,
case I wasn't doing enough, I also started doing homeschool. So I do homeschool, and then so my au pair takes the kids to homeschool events at least once a week to go hang out with other kids and run around and play and do all sorts of stuff. She takes them to like Sky Zone to go jump around and stuff, and that gives me a little bit of a break. But we were in Vermont for a GoBundance event, and we did fam abundance beforehand. So the family side of the house, and we all sat down and we kind of, and I asked Adam, he's in fourth grade. I said, hey, what can Daddy do better to show up for you as a dad? And one of the things he said is he's like, maybe just like 20 minutes a day in the middle of your workday, if you could just come out play with us, that would be great. And I was like, all right, let's book it. Like, I can't guarantee it's going to be every day, but right now we have it on the schedule Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. I've got a half an hour in the middle of the day where I get to step out and take a break and do whatever the kids want to do. Today was one of those days. We rode around the four wheeler and the dirt bike in the backyard. We were chasing each other around, doing wheelies, having a great time. Um, and it was just, I mean, it was a blast, right? And that's something that they really rely on is, like the beginning of the day, they're like, today's one of the days, right? Today at 12 o'clock we have our playtime. I'm like, yeah, buddy, today at 12 o'clock we got our playtime, but that means I need to focus over here. So that gives me the ability to tell them, hey, Daddy needs to really focus because we do have our playtime. But it also takes away some of the guilt because I know that I'm like, hey, it's on my calendar. It's in there, it's on my calendar, nobody can book it. I'm like, this is their time. So I'm going to preserve that because I only have them in fourth grade and kindergarten once. There's no coming back from that. Like that, once they're in fifth grade and first grade, there's no, I don't get those moments again. They're different moments now. So that's one of
Definitely.
the things I've done.
I love that. I love the way you handle it. It has to be in the calendar. I mean, it's a priority for us. I mean, especially you're a
Yeah.
family man. Um, you mentioned a couple of times active duty passive income.
Yeah.
How do you guys start that, and what was the purpose initially, and how is that going? Because you mentioned that you have some changes and you kind of like took over the operation.
Yeah.
But what was the beginning of? What was the idea that you guys start that with?
Yeah, so ADPI is an education company that teaches military members and veterans how to invest in real estate.
Mhm.
So it was 2017 by Markian and a couple of his buddies. So they founded it. I came in right in the beginning of 2018 to kind of talk to everybody about my ventures into multifamily. So I came in pretty close to the very beginning. We were pretty small at the time. We had less than probably 1,000 people in our group. I actually should say definitely less than 1,000 people. Now we've got somewhere around 78,000 people inside the community. It's a private community just for military members and their families. Um, and it got started really to kind of share what real estate can do for people, especially as military members. So one thing the military does terribly, and I was a perfect example of that, even at the beginning of the story, is they don't teach you how to be financially free. They don't teach you much about finances, just enough to keep you out of jail. Like their Uncle Sam does not really have much of a benefit if you become financially free and don't rely on that paycheck anymore. They want you to not go to jail, like I said, but they don't necessarily need you to be raking in the millions. So um, but we said, hey, there's almost nobody using their VA loan in a way that allows them to grow their portfolio while on active duty. Let's go ahead and see if we could teach people how to do this, grow their ability to uh, buy real estate throughout the country as they're moving from state to state. Buy a new property, rent it out when you leave, buy another property, rent it out when you leave, and keep that going. When you retire, you could have, 6, 8, 10 properties. Especially if you buy duplex, triplex, quadplex type stuff, live in one of them and rent out the rest. So that's kind of how it was started. And we still do the same thing. We've got a free book that we wrote to teach people about that side of the house, multifamily education, short-term rental education, all that type of stuff, just focused on helping the military members in a community of like-minded people.
And what is the size of the community? I think if it was 7 to 8,000 or 78,000.
78. Yeah. 7,
78,
8,000. Yeah.
78,000. So it's a large community.
Yeah.
How did you guys grew so, I mean, to that number, and what channel did you guys use? Obviously, I assume that you guys in military are really, really, really tight. It's a tight community, and
Mm,
you guys share resources a lot. So I guess that most likely help you a lot. But how did you guys
yeah.
decide were able to increase the community from 1,000 to 78,000? And it was just in a couple of years. It wasn't like in
Yeah.
decades.
So yeah, we a lot of it was word of mouth. Almost all of it was word of mouth. A bunch of referrals for people to come over. We still get a massive amount of people just inviting their friends to come into the community, which is good and bad. It's always good to have more people come in, but it's exhausting because you're required to answer all of the questions to get into our community. We won't let you in, especially if we can't tell that you're military. It's just not gonna happen. So then we're having to reach out to people all the time and say, hey, fill out the questions if you actually want to come in. You were invited by so and so. But
Mm.
yeah, it was almost all word of mouth, and it was on Facebook. It's on our private Facebook group, and then we have a community outside of Facebook. Facebook tends to be very distracting, and it does not always like to show people what's actually being posted. It just kind of uses its algorithm to show stuff, right? So we created a community outside of Facebook on Circle. And that's been awesome. It hosts our education, our masterminds, and the community at large. So we're doing everything we can to build that up to make sure that, and that was just recent we did that, and so we're doing everything we can to build that up to secure our place in the world, no matter what Facebook decides to do.
Yeah, and I love that. I know Russell Bronson from the ClickFunnels. He mentioned that all the time.
Uh-huh.
That if you have all your community in Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, one day they can just switch the turn the switch off, and that's it. And you're out.
Yep.
Circle. Last time we had a conversation, you were using Kajabi. So did you guys did transition to Circle?
We did. We transitioned to Circle because we like that community function a little bit better and the way
Mhm.
they manage it all than Jobby. Jobby's good, but it just didn't have the community wasn't the way that we wanted it set up. It didn't have the right feel for us. So Circle is a little bit better at hosting for that.
Yeah, and it seems like that way because I was doing some research. I'm in the process of revamp my mastermind, although it was a
Uh-huh.
small compared to yours. And I was researching to the ones that are available, and I saw the one from Brandon Turner, the Better Life, that they have it in
Mhm.
Circle as well. So I was like,
Okay.
that
Yeah.
makes sense. You are the second one. So is that as easy to use as Kajabi, or is it more complicated, or did you guys have to learn it, or you guys had got someone that already you had to do it and let them do it?
So yeah, there's actually people in Circle that'll help you onboard and learn everything that you need to kind of get everything set up the way you want to. So honestly, I like it a lot better than Kajabi. So is it? Um, I'm the kind of guy who tends, me personally, the kind of guy who tends to once I find something I like, I stick to it forever, because I don't like to try to figure out how to change things. Thankfully, I'm in a technology and education company, so where I've got a group of people who are more than willing to learn all of these things and say, oh no, these tools are way better. So they do a much better job of running all that. I just make sure that it's actually running. But from my perspective, sitting in there, yes, I do like Circle better. It is real smooth. I love the features that we're able to have in there, like just be able to, we create an event inside of Circle, we hit send, and it puts it on everybody's calendar for you automatically. Everything is taken care of. Like it's the notifications work well. The app on the phone works well. So everything, we like that a lot.
It's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that because I tell my wife that the same thing. Like I go to the same restaurant, I order the same food, and I got and my wife like sounds kind of boring. I said that's why I'm so faithful because I love my wife. I'm not looking around. So that was kind of like a funny
That's
joke with
funny.
her all the time. So it seems you have a pretty busy life. So you're doing real estate, you're doing the active duty passive income, you do homeschooling, and then
Yeah.
you decided, you know what? I'm going to do a podcast as well.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so how did the idea came? And I see you're really super active. I mean, see you're doing great content, a lot of like great clips. So how do you decide that? Okay, that's fine. With all of that I have in my life, which is it seems like there's a lot. Now I'm going to do a podcast. And how is that going? And what kind of team do you have to support you to do
Mhm.
everything that you're doing within the podcast?
So yeah, I just woke up at like 10 in the morning on a random Wednesday, bored out of my mind, and said, I should talk to people on a podcast. And but no, I love being a dad. It's one of the best things that's ever happened to me in my life. I love that title. Like, still once in a while, they'll come up behind me and say, "Daddy," and it like melts my knees. Like it just. I love being a dad. And when I was in the military, I saw a lot of divorces, a lot of dads who, I'd even known them for a while and never knew they were a dad. They never talked about their kids. I never saw their kids. I never knew they were married at any point. And it was like really sad for me to kind of think about that. I mean, I had been wanting to be a dad since I was 13 years old. So to see these men like not even talk about kids, like, man, and there was just a lot of that in the military because, you get sent around all over the world, especially when, you're in the height of the wars. I mean, it was 06, 07, and we're, deploying every 6 months. 6 months on, 6 months off, or here and there. By the time you come home, your wife's like, I don't want you in the house anymore. Or, you're so angry that you have fights, and there's just like a lot of divorces going on. And that always broke my heart. And then I come into the entrepreneur side, and I really just want to pour into my kids. It's why I left the military, so I could be a present dad. And then you could see it even in the entrepreneur side of the house where, I'm building all of this for my family while they're working 20 hours a day and they never see their family. Like, okay, are you building it for your family that you're not going to have in 10 years because they've left you? They're out of the house now. Like, what is your actual goal? So I wanted to make sure I never became one of those men. So, I wanted to, iron sharpen iron, bring in men who are crushing it as dads and business owners, and, how have discussions about how they kind of manage their life, so that they're still involved with their kids as well as running their business as well. Because I was, to your point from before, having some of that guilt of like, okay, well, I know that I'm not doing as much as I can with my kids right now. Oh, I know I'm not doing as much as I can with my business right now, and never feeling that balance, which I think is honestly a misnomer anyways. I don't think there's such a thing as balance. I think you just, balance may mean that, this season of life I need to do a lot more of this, and that season of life I can do a lot more of that. But it's, there's got to be some give and take here and there. So that's why I really started it, was to really just talk to other dads who are crushing it in life and try to steal all of their good ideas. So how do I manage it? So mostly what I have done now is I've got a great VA. She's awesome. Does a great job with all of my content and manages all of my social media stuff, as well as my emails and inviting guests and making sure all that stuff is done. All I do is I sit down in this seat, I record for a couple hours with somebody, and then that's it. I save it and I walk away. I don't touch anything from there. So really I get to take the part that really excites me, write down, 5, 6, 10, 15 pages of notes on an hour and a half long conversation. And then I move on from there. Somebody else kind of manages all the other stuff. So it makes my life a lot easier to not have to worry about all that. That's for sure.
And how do you find that VA, and where is she located?
So she's a Filipino VA, and I found her on onlinejobs.ph. She's probably the 4th or 5th one I've hired. And definitely a keeper for sure. I've had her working with me now for, I don't know, 2 years. It took me a while. I had a couple people that I hired that didn't work out. One person I hired that would have worked out, but I just wasn't ready to really pour into her the way I needed to make it a successful onboarding. And then finally with this one, she's been great.
So when you make all the notes and everything, do you tell her, listen, I want to do a clip about this? Or because one of the issues that I find with someone that's going to do clips, someone that needs to know the subject that we're talking about, to be able to realize that that's a good clip, and instead of just chopping the video here and there. So how do you handle that?
So yeah, she goes through. She actually loves the podcast, anyways. So it's fun for her to listen to. She's like, I love hearing about what you're talking about. It's so cool.
That's what she says. I'm kidding.
Yeah, that might just be what she says, but that's fine with me because she does a good job. So I don't care if she's lying to me. That's okay.
I'm kidding. I'm sure she loves it.
Well, she'll probably watch this and be like, how did Snow actually? So, but she picks out good content already, and she'll send me some stuff once in a while, and I'm like, I think I want a different clip than that. That one really doesn't hit the way I would like it to. So I review all of it after she sets it up and does all the stuff, and then I'll give the final ominous dominus on it for the most part. Sometimes I can't fit it into my schedule to review it, and it gets posted, and hopefully it's good. But for the most part, she sets it all up, sends it over to me, and I give it the final thumbs up at the before it all gets posted. So she does enjoy actually listening to all of that, so it makes life a little bit easier, and she understands
totally.
what it means for me to be a dad and what that means to my family. So
it is great. Is there anything that you miss from the military life?
Boy, I would say, I miss the people, but at the same point, that's one of the benefits about running ADPI is I've got all the people, with a different mission. There were some really exciting times and some really enjoyable times I had. I mean, I do miss some of the adrenaline I used to have, but my body doesn't miss it at all. I've been pretty beat up. I was telling you right before I got a call from my doctor to talk to me about my x-rays about literally like these multiple fractures across multiple vertebrae in my back. And they're trying to figure out why I'm hurting it so bad. And I'm like, well, I'm really glad I'm not doing, jumping out of helicopters in Afghanistan anymore. Like I'm glad that part of my life is over. But man, oh
That
man, was
helps.
it
That
fun?
helps.
I do miss it. So I do miss some of that adrenaline. I need to kind of figure out where to get that from again, because I do need some adrenaline in my life. But right now it's just been heads down and business stuff. So I would say that's probably one of the things I miss for sure.
Great. Go Abundance. So we are
Yeah.
part of the same mastermind. What was the reason for you to join, and how do you find it? And the question is because, as you know, it's a group that is growing, but at the same time we have like a few members that are going out, and see a few of them that are thinking about it. And
Yeah.
I'll give you my perspective in terms of like why that is happening. But in your case, so why do you find it? Why did you join? How do you find it? And how's everything going on with you?
Yeah, so I mean, I joined a little over 4 years ago, so I've
Okay.
been in for a while. I found it, I was looking for honestly a dad mastermind at that point, and I found one that wasn't what I was looking for. Like I was in it, and it just seemed a lot more like um, complaining about things that are going on in their dad life, as opposed to trying to grow and get better about things.
Complaining that mastermind.
Yeah, it was not what I was looking for. So I was like, I dropped out of that one pretty quickly. And then I was talking to a buddy of mine, Phil. He's in GoBundance, and he had just joined GoBundance, and I was like, yeah, I don't know what I really want to do yet. Blah blah blah. Like I'd like to do a mastermind. He's like, you should join my mastermind, the mastermind I just joined. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. And then like a week later, I chatted with him again. I said, I was thinking about joining GoBundance because I'd heard about it on a podcast or something like that. And he was like, that's the one I just joined. And I was like, I guess I should join it then. So I did. I signed up right before COVID, which really turned the live event thing around a little bit. But yeah, so I joined it right before COVID. I absolutely loved it. I mean, I told my wife, I said there was one deal that I did, a short-term rental that I did with a couple guys in GoBundance, and I told her, I said, look, we've already made uh, multiple, like over a decade worth of dues to go abundance just by the one deal. So like we're in the black for sure on this if we look at it just from a dollar value standpoint. And the people always are wonderful and amazing to me, and I love being around them. But yeah, we did grow an awful lot real quick because it was not the size it is now when I first joined. That is for sure.
Sure. And now, what did you like the most?
Oh, what do I like the most? So honestly, the community is by far where I'm at. Like when I go to the live events, which I go to almost every national event, and I go to pretty much all of the Florida events down here.
Sure.
I'll even, I even went to the Philadelphia event last year because I know the Philly tribe is a pretty good one, and pretty big one, and very involved. So, I brought my family up for that one too, so they got to kind of come hang out with the Philly tribe. Um, but I would say that anytime I can meet these folks in person is probably my favorite part of GoBundance.
Mm.
It like everybody is actually open, honest, willing to share. They're not egotistical. They're not, even the spouses have a wonderful time. My wife has had a great time with a bunch of the Go wives and the Go gals here in Florida, and just it's been an awesome experience.
It's amazing. At the end of the show, usually we have this as the same questions to all the guests, and I want to ask them
Okay.
to you to learn to get to know you a little bit more. What are your hobbies when you are not doing real estate, when you are not teaching, when you are not doing podcast? What are your hobbies right now? You mentioned that one of the things that you might be missing from military is the adrenaline, excitement.
Yeah.
So, and you mentioned you're looking for ways to fulfill that. But
Yeah.
right now, what are the hobbies that you have?
Um, Boy, really, almost the only hobby I have now is family, and it's I really need to do a little bit more, and I've talked to my wife about it too. So there are two hobbies. As I think I've narrowed down what I really want my two hobbies to be, and now it's just building my life into it. Is golf and flying. I love to fly small planes. My goal has been to buy a plane. It's been on my one sheet for the last couple of years is to buy a plane, and it just hasn't happened given all of the changes and all the stuff going on. I just haven't bought a plane yet. Um, but I love flying small planes, bringing my family around places and checking things out. We were in DC, flying out to Delaware for dinner, or doing something. It was just fun, just to jump in a plane and go fly somewhere. And golfing. My sons both love golfing, so my oldest golfs way more than I do at this point. But I want to get a membership at a local country club here and just be able to go out golfing with him. And even if I work from the country club while he goes golfing for a little bit, I mean, that would be fine too, just so I can be there, be around it, and be ready to play all the time. So that's probably my top two.
Okay. So to use the accountability of Go Abundance, so when are you planning to do that?
I'm sorry, do what with GoBundance?
So to use something that we use in governance all the time, which is accountability.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
that sounds great. So when are you planning? Because I do remember about the airplane. You mentioned a lot when I met you,
Yeah.
and that was a year ago. So when are you planning
Yeah.
let's start for the easiest one. So just sign up for the membership or whatever it is and commit the time, because it's not just signing up. I mean, you can sign it up right now, but I guess the
Yeah.
issue is committing the time and be able to play.
Exactly. Yeah, committing the time is the hardest part, and that's
Yeah.
um, I need to sit down with my wife on that one because anytime that I'm going to take, I mean, because that's a 4 hour commitment if I want to go do 18 holes, right? So my wife already doesn't see me enough, and I don't see her enough. So if I were to add into, oh, I know that you've been working all week and I've been working all week, but do you mind if I go take 5 hours off on Saturday morning to go golfing with a couple of my buddies? Now, granted, I'll be able to go golfing with my sons, right? So I can take them with me and be like, okay, you hang out with the daughter, with our daughter, and I'll be back at the end of the golf match. And I think that would work out fine. But I just need to know that she is actually comfortable with me taking the time to do that. And I'm 95% certain she's going to be supportive of it. There's just going to have to be some compromise in knowing what we do.
Sure.
Buying the plane, I would say that I should have that conversation with my wife by the end of the week, just because my son actually starts golfing again here soon, and he's going to want to be able to practice a little bit more. And if we don't have a simulator at home, then I'd like to bring him to a golf course that he's a member at to go practice. So,
Sure.
um, but the plane I've put on hold until I can prove to myself that I fly enough to make it worthwhile. Because it's been one of those chicken or the egg type of things, right? Do I not
Mm.
fly enough because I don't own my own plane and it's a pain to try to rent one, or do I not fly enough because I don't have enough time to actually fly? So if I buy a plane and it just sits there anyways, like what's the point?
Yep.
So I'm trying to, like, maybe I just need to sit down and say, okay, these are the days we're going to go fly and go rent the plane and go. And make sure that I know that I have the ability, because my wife and I, like, it'd be a real nice day right now. She'd come home, and it would be lovely for me to just be like, hey, let's go jump in the plane and go watch the sunset tonight, from the sky. Like, that's the type of thing that I would probably do more often with the plane, or go have that, what we call $100 hamburger, where you jump in the plane, fly to a different airport, have dinner right there at the airport, and then fly back. Like, those things were very spontaneous in that way. So I think that if I had it, that would be something we would do.
Sounds great. Can you recommend us a book, and also a a TV show or a movie? So either one book
Boy.
and or a TV series if you watch any TV, or a movie.
Really, when we watch TV, it's mostly built around the kids now. So, we might be watching, let's say, Super Y, or the Magic School Bus Returns, right? So I used to watch the Magic School Bus when I was a kid, and they have a newer one now. My kids love it. They get to learn about science and have a good time. But no, I honestly, I don't. We don't watch really much TV at all, so
Yeah.
that's kind of hard. I would say maybe the Gladiator. Gladiator is probably one of the ones that everybody who's listening to this has watched. But I still think actually, The Big Short. That would be one that I would say that if it's going to be business related and real estate related, look Big Short. Not watched it. It's a phenomenal movie. I really like it a lot. As far as books go, boy, there's a few. I would say Secrets of the Millionaire Mind would be one that I almost always recommend to people. The mindset you have around money comes from somewhere, and until you figure it out, you don't know what it is that you need to get rid of, right? What bad habits you may have that you need to get rid of. But Secrets of the Millionaire Mind was definitely a good one that I liked a lot, and I almost always recommend it to folks.
Okay. And who is the author?
I think it's T. Harv Eker, if I recall correctly.
Okay. Because I haven't read that one, so I'm gonna give it a try.
Oh,
Okay,
it's a good
friend.
one.
Yeah, I'm sure I love it. So, where can people find you? Where can people listen to the
Yeah.
podcast? Where can people just find more about what you're doing right now, and just continue seeing the journey? Because at the end of the day, it's not so much of the destination, but the journey.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So the Biz Dad podcast, BIZDAD, all one word, the Biz Dad podcast, anywhere that you watch or listen to podcasts, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, all the different places. You can reach out to me, Adam at ralcapitalgroup.com. If you're military, you can reach out to me at Adam at activedutypassiveincome.com. But yeah, I mean, you can find me on all over the socials. Send me a message, reach out to me. I'm happy to help wherever I can.
Great. The last question I forgot to ask you, because I mentioned it to you before, what is your differentiator? What is something that what is that you have that make you do everything that you do? Because I can guarantee you, people that listen to this, like, I mean, they might not be able to do half of the things that you've done. So what is that you're,
No.
what is your it?
I really, boy, it's kind of passing the buck a little bit, but I really narrowed down, and something I really encourage everybody to do is figure out your why. If you are chasing real estate because you want money, then you're not going to go as far as somebody who's chasing real estate because they want to provide a massive, amazing opportunity for their kids that they never had, to reach out of poverty to bring their family to a different level of wealth than anybody ever thought inside of that family is possible. So when you really break down to what your why actually is, it's not just the money, it's not just the dollars, it's not just, well, my buddies are doing this, but I really narrowed in my why. I did a lot of stuff all over the world. For a bunch of other people. And now it's time for me to really support my family in a way that I know is possible. So every day I look at my why, which is my kids and my wife, and that's kind of my motivator to make me keep going. I get little notes on my mirror from my wife here and there, encouraging me and and propping me up, and I do the same thing for her. And those little things right there are enough to really juice my day for the foreseeable future. It's wonderful to be able to just do that. I love that Tim kind of said his wife, and I'm looking at it saying, hey, it's my wife and kids as well. I mean, I do come with a bunch of knowledge, skills, and abilities from the military that most people don't have, which helps set me apart a little bit. But none of that would matter anyways if I didn't have the push and drive that my family gives me.
Totally. Well, thank you. It was a pleasure. As I knew it was going to be a pleasure talking to you. I always admire you. Since the first time we have a conversation, I'm looking forward to having our next conversation soon.
Absolutely. And we got to get you, if you're not already signed up, we got to get you on my podcast and do the same.
Not yet, but whenever you want me to, I'll be there.
That's right. Thank you so much, Carlos. I appreciate it.
Yeah, just don't go nowhere. Just give me a second. I'm gonna
absolutely
look it out. And for all of us, for all of you, it's great to have you here. Thank you for joining us. And I'm looking forward for tomorrow's podcast. We're gonna have a real estate investor with an amazing story. So he's gonna be live tomorrow at 10 a.m. So looking forward to see you, and God bless you all, and have an amazing day.